Welcome back to the Cardboard Crash Course. My name's Ethan, and today we're looking at Devouring Teeth Lurk Underfoot. This is a spirit from the Horizons of Spirit Island, a base game sort of that introduced a bunch of low complexity spirits that are really well designed and easy to jump into. This Devouring Teeth is a very offensive spirit from this game, and it has really low of everything else. Just a tiny bit of control and fear, but not much otherwise. Keep in mind, offense usually translates into fear, so it's kind of a fear generation spirit from a certain point of view. This reminds you you're going to start with your 4 unique power cards as well as 0 energy, and you put 1 presence on your starting board in land number 5 to begin. Alright, so only placing 1 presence on your starting board means you start with a full 12 on your tracks. So this guy probably won't get into his final couple of pieces of the track unless he's playing against like a really low England. Anyway, let's talk about the special rules, the growth options, his presence tracks, and then his innate powers, as well as his cards and some cards that I wish that pop up in my games while I'm playing him. Keeping it simple, with the special rule, we've got territorial aggression. Your damage dealing powers do +1 damage. And let's read the reminder here of what this means. This adds +1 damage total for the power, even if the power damages multiple invaders or each invader. It can boost minor or major power cards too, not just your uniques and innate. So that's great to keep in mind. So it's boosting it from 1 damage total. So let's say it does 6 damage and then another 2. Well, it's doing 9 damage because the entire card, or whatever power it is being increased by 1. That's a very simple way of telling you that maybe multiple minor powers with this guy is stronger than 1 major. But it totally depends on your situation as well. Next up is the growth options. So these are both really nice and kind of hard to deal with. The reason is because on his reclaim he places a presence at 0, on his gain power card he places a presence at 1, and on his gain energy he places a presence at 2. So yes, no matter what you're doing, you're growing in your tracks, but there's no situation in which you're going to be able to place 2 at once. So if you have a card that needs a sacred site, it's going to be pretty slow going to build those. The good news is neither his innate power nor any of his unique power cards need a sacred site to be used. Next up is his presence tracks, 6 on each. So you start off with 2 energy and 1 card play. That's pretty nice, it's pretty normal. But you're right away going to be hitting some elements. You've got both fire and animal. That's going to help with your innate power. However, you're not going to be able to get the earth until later on with that single one on the bottom track. And you've really got to commit to that 1 track and kind of forget about the top. With a really decent high energy threshold and a alright threshold on his bottom, you're going to be able to pretty easily teach somebody how important these elements are throughout the track. Because there's 1 of each of these types on either one, it makes them pretty flexible. And it's a great way to learn how element thresholds are worth just as much as card plays. That being said, his innate power, Death Approaches from Beneath the Surface, is pretty nice. It's slow speed, unfortunately, and has a range of 1, and it must target a land with invaders. But it assists in moving your presence. So if you can't get it there, let's say you had reclaimed for the turn, you can get it there by using his innate power. With 1 of each, fire and animal, if you don't have a presence in the target land, gather 1 of your presence to there. Keep in mind this is required, just like if you hit any threshold, it's required to do it in order. This means that it both thematically represents him slowly moving towards the people in order to eat them, but it also allows you to spread across the board and even into other people's boards when playing in a multiplayer game. If you add 1 more of each and an earth, you're going to do 1 damage there. If you add another of each and keep the 1 earth, you'll do another 2 damage. And another 1 of each plus another earth, you're going to do 4 damage on top of that, as well as generate 2 fear. Keep in mind, no matter what you do here, it's increased by 1. So if you hit that 2nd threshold, it's actually 2. If you hit that 3rd threshold, it's actually 4, and so on and so forth. So he's going to be able to be destroying cities and then destroying all sorts of things once he hits those higher thresholds. You're going to be able to get there and blow things up, which is a really fun way to play a spirit. It's pretty obvious what makes him so offensive. Next up are his unique power cards. I'm going to start with the most straightforward one. It's Ferocious Rampage, a slow 2-energy power card that has a fire and an animal element. It has a range of 0, so you're going to need to be there, but you can get there by hitting that innate power, just with this card alone. It generates a fear and then does 3 damage to explorers or towns only. So unfortunately you can't do it to cities, but keep in mind it does +1 damage because of that territorial aggression rule. So really this kind of reads 4 damage to them. You'd be able to blow up 2 towns or be able to mix and match however you want. Next up is Herd Towards the Lurking Maw. It's a 1-energy slow power, again with range 0, but it doesn't help you hit that first innate all by itself. It instead has an earth, which helps later on, and a water, which is kind of a flex element, as well as the animal. It generates a fear and then gathers up to 1 explorer or town. So it can pull them in before you use either your innate power or the power card previous to eat them. This is a support power for yourself and doesn't inherently solve anything other than maybe getting them off something they'll either ravage or build. Next is a fully support power. This is Gift of Furious Might. It has a moon, a fire, and an animal, and is fast. It only costs 1 and has to target another spirit. Keep in mind in a solo game, anything that says target another spirit, you're able to target yourself instead. That target spirit deals +3 damage this turn with one of its damage dealing powers. So just like your territorial aggression, it does +3 damage in total, not each instance of damage on that card. But to be honest, this is really, really strong. As long as I have even a card that does 1 consequential damage here or there, it'll do 4 or more. It's a lot of fun to play on yourself in a solo game, and even more fun to have options in a multiplayer game. And finally, we have Mark Territory with Scars and Teeth. This is an earth, an animal, and has also a flex element of a sun. It costs 2 and is fast. At range 0, you defend 9, and then generate 2 fear if those invaders are present, and then you can push 2 Dahan away. Or rather, you have to push 2 Dahan away. This is his only card that inherently defends, but it's a massive defense for only 2 cost. This is definitely showing you how you're going to want to be defending as much as possible with any cards that you grab. He can't actually deal with anything by himself unless he's destroying it. So if it's way too much for him to be able to destroy, a quick defense is always great to have. And because he can reclaim cards and also grow at the same time, just grabbing this card over and over and over again is not actually too bad of an idea. Showing you a couple of cards that he's going to love out of the minor power deck, we first got Territorial Strife. So this does 3 damage to towns and explorers, which is actually going to be 4. And then if it's pushing it too far, then you can actually switch to this later option, adding a Strife if you can't perfectly get there, or if you don't need to kill them right now. This also hits both of those elements and has a sun, just like Mark Territory, if you're going for a major power threshold. Another example is Quicken the Earth Struggles. So this either defends 10, which is perfect, as well as being perfectly on curve with his innate power thresholds, but also has an option to just do 1 damage to each building. Now keep in mind, territorial aggression means that 1 damage is going to be increased by 1 total, not to each specific one. But that's not too bad when you're able to clear a bunch of stuff out and also just guarantee you either blow up a town or a city, depending on your situation. So overall, what do I think of Devouring Teeth, Lurk, Underfoot? I think this is a great flex spirit for those of the players who are playing for the very first time. I would absolutely hand this to somebody because they get to place a presence every single turn, slowly growing towards those elements, and if they choose the bottom track, it's going to be kind of hard for them to get energy. But if you're playing with somebody who gives a gift of power or anything like that, it'll get slightly easier. Again, I think multiple minor powers is stronger with him, and that's why they kind of kept the threshold really low for his bottom track, because he would get super, super overpowered when you get to these later rounds if it was too easy to get there. It's a great way of playing the game. Even for me as an experienced player, I love jumping into something simple like this and just doing some damage. It's kind of like a fixed version of Lightning Swift Strike. Speaking of Lightning Swift Strike, I'm going to put that video in the very end of this video. If you want to see any of these spirit studies, go ahead and check out the playlist in the description. And if you love these videos and love sending them to people to have them learn the game, go ahead and do that and check out the Patreon. That's the absolute best way to help me out. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next spirit study. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Play for intuition upon the stars in the night that glisten. To you they listen, to be you is something I'm wishing. When your time comes, don't postpone it. When others doubt and out, you don't condone it. Truth be told, yourself